All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Health Movement Podcast. I'm Derek, your host. I'm a certified personal trainer, a teacher of over 20 years. I have an incredible guest with me today that I'm so excited to talk to. Before I introduce him, we're not doctors, so before you go changing anything, nutrition, diet, or whatever you get from this show, consult your physician. If you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, like, subscribe, all that stuff. But without any further ado, I have Sam Demma with us. He's a best-selling author and a keynote speaker, and I will say a very in-demand keynote speaker, and just an overall awesome guy. So, Sam, thank you so much for joining me.
Derek, I'm honored to be here and I'm happy that you asked.
Oh, awesome. And I kind of want to start with, because I didn't hijack one of your stories. I gave you credit for it, but your taco story, that was awesome. Can you, from the horse's mouth, give us kind of the background into that story, and then we can go further on from there. But I know I've told it before, but I figure I want to hear it from you and the actual story itself.
During the pandemic, I had 34 keynote speeches at schools, associations, and institutions canceled in the span of a week. And it was a year after I convinced my half Italian, half Greek parents that taking a pause from my political science education to pursue this dream to share stories and impact people emotionally was going to be my calling and my gift. And I remember jokingly, telling my grandma that I am a keynote speaker and people invite me to speak. And this is my grandma on my Italian side that I call Nonna. And it's been 7 years and she still has no idea what the heck I do. And back then, I was always the kid growing up cracking jokes at family functions and making all this noise. And so my grandma would jokingly be like, Sam, I'll pay you to stop talking. Like, please. And anyway, I remember a year after convincing everyone this is what I'm going to do with my life, I started building some momentum, and then 34 presentations canceled. Started seriously doubting my path and my abilities to bring the path to life. And I figured if I was struggling, it probably wasn't just me. My friends were probably going through some stuff too. So I picked up the phone. I called one of my good friends, Andrew, who owns a videography company, and just wanted to check in on him. It was 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and the guy was still lying in bed. And I hung up the phone a couple minutes later after checking up on him, and I thought, if this guy's still in bed, he's probably not doing so great. Maybe there's something you could do to make him feel better. Phone call ends, go on his social media, come across this post that says, my vote for dinner tonight is hashtag tacos. The most simple idea. Like, Andrew likes tacos. I'm going to get him tacos, see if that makes him feel better. I went on Uber Eats, found this taco dinner, punched in his address, put a special note for the delivery person that said, hey, these tacos are from your friend Sam, and he hopes you feel better. 20 minutes later, I get the notification on my phone. The tacos have been delivered. And I kid you not, within less than 60 seconds, I get a FaceTime call from my friend Andrew, sitting on a bar stool in front of his kitchen countertop, box of tacos open behind him, uncontrollably bawling his eyes out.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, dude, it's 2 tacos in a box. Like, calm down. And he's like, no, it's not the food, man. It's the things you didn't know. You didn't know we had to shut down the business recently and lay off employees. We're not sure how we're going to make things work for the next little while. Maybe for you and your perspective, it's just a taco in a box. But for me and my wife, this is a moment we're going to remember for the rest of our lives. I got emotional. We cried together for a few minutes, hung up the phone, went about the rest of my day, went to sleep, woke up the next morning, 500 text messages from Andrew of 500 individual taco emojis. The next year, Derek, every time we had a conversation, he would pause mid conversation and be like, "Man, do you remember that one time when you?" I'm like,
Yeah,
dude, shut
dude,
up.
I remember. I remember.
Yeah. And then that year on my birthday, he sent me an email with this logo. And for everyone who's just listening to this, it's a bright yellow smiling taco, and above it, it says "Be someone's taco."
That's fantastic.
And the whole idea is just, man, we all have different goals and dreams in life, but to remember that one of the most meaningful aspects of life is not the job we work in, but using some of our time and energy to make somebody else feel loved, cared for, and appreciated, and how those decisions are accessible to us every single day. And when we lean into them, we feel just as great about it as the person does on the receiving end.
I love that you said the word perspective in there too, because you're right, it is 2 tacos, and for
Yeah.
most people, it would be like, "Oh, cool, thanks, bro." But when you hit it at the right time, when somebody really needs to know that, they're not alone, that there's that people care, and that you got people on your side, like, that definitely hits a lot harder. But then the point the fact he keeps bringing it up, do you
You
remember?
know?
I'm sure he's laughing his butt off when he's saying that too, so that's a good thing. But that bond, I like, that's a forever bond, and, that's something whenever as he's going through life, he's not gonna forget that in 30 years. Like, when you see his grandkids or whatever have, like, he's gonna that's gonna be there, that's
Him
incredible.
him and his wife, I invited them to our children's book launch because we released a kids book recently called Be Someone's Taco, and
That's
it takes
awesome.
that story dedicated, to this real life experience and turns it into a kid-friendly version that teaches kindness and empathy, and I invited both of them to the book launch on free tickets to be there, and it's funny because when I told the story live on stage, Andrew was in the crowd heckling me going, "I wasn't crying that much. It was just a couple tears." So, the guy is directly involved in the entire journey involving this story. Um, I just wanna comment real quick on the mention of perspectives because I truly believe that life is all about the perspectives we choose to take. I was just with a friend here before we started talking who told me you should always ask yourself, is life happening to you or are you happening to life? And
Ah, I
uh,
like that.
I love this idea because one of my favorite speakers of all time was a guy named Jim Rohn, who's now passed away. But I have digested all of his lectures on YouTube, and he shared this story about two salesmen that wake up one morning and look out the window and it's pouring rain. And one of them says, "Oh, it's pouring rain outside. They expect me to go out and, sell things today. No one's going to want to buy. Everyone's going to be in a grumpy mood." The second guy wakes up, looks out the window, and celebrates. He's like, every single house is going to have customers in it because no one's going to be outside. And you know who else is not going to be outside? The other grumpy salespeople that stop selling when it starts raining. And he grabs his umbrella and goes and has a successful day. And it's like it was raining for everybody, but someone just chose a different story about what the rain meant to their life, and it made all the difference. And I think I think that's been a big portion of my entire experiences so far. It's just choosing a different story.
I like that. I teach 10 and 11-year-olds, and they're the oldest grade in the elementary school, and
Yeah.
I remember one year having to have a conversation with the kids because, you know, some of the kids had said something unkind to some younger kids. And it obviously affected the younger kids. And I tried to sit down, and I'm not going to yell and scream at them because I don't think that's effective at all. But explain to them that, like, the things you said, the words you said, you forgot about them 5 minutes later. Like, it doesn't affect your life, but that kid's gonna go home, and that's all they're gonna think about, and it's not just the kid. Their parents are gonna hear about it, and now their parents are worried about it, and maybe they call their grandparents, and now that kid coming to school the next day is gonna be anxious, is not gonna be, having that sense. It was a good conversation, and it kinda hit home, and then from there, it was like, all right, you have a role here. You've got to,
Mm,
you know, you can make this culture what you want it to be. Like, teachers say stuff that, we support the kids, we do all that, but the students are the ones that really affect each other. And it was like, all right, if you pass a kindergarten and you smile and wave, or you say, "Oh, those shoes are awesome," or "They're fire," to go to kid language,
mm.
that kid is gonna smile, and that's an awesome day. It took you 2 seconds to compliment some kid's shoes that you don't even know, and maybe they were terrible. Maybe they weren't nice at all, but that kid doesn't know that, and you helped him out. So again, that, like you said, perspective in what you can do with those little moments to try and brighten someone's day. And maybe that kid was having a terrible day, and your 2 words changed it. So now
Mm.
you've altered the course of that kid's day for the good. So I think I like that story. When I heard it, really, really resonated well with me. I like that one.
I love the work that you're doing. because you're impacting educators on this podcast and students, and then you have the opportunity to really impact young people in the classroom. So you're not only supporting and building the next generation, but you're also supporting the folks that support the next generation. So thank you for all the work that you do, man.
Oh,
It's really cool.
you're welcome. No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So uh you had said in one of your reels where you were speaking at a school and you overheard some of the teachers or something saying like, "Oh, what's this young guy going to say that we don't know?" Um how did you and you can touch on that story. I definitely want to hear that, but how did you get into this? I don't know if you want to go back to your soccer career and kind of lead us into what brought you here, but how did you get started with this job of yours?
By accident. um, I grew up wanting to play professional soccer, pursued it very seriously. At the age of 13, I had an opportunity to move to Italy for 6 months to play with a club. Mom didn't want to let me go. My dad was like, "Go get him, son." Um,
Who won out in
I,
that one? Did you end up going?
I went to Italy,
Nice. All right.
and as much as I joke about my mom not wanting me to go, she was the most supportive. She just made me promise that I would FaceTime her every single night before going to sleep.
Uh,
And I forgot to FaceTime her one time and woke up with 74 missed calls. Yeah, some people
yeah, that,
call it love. I call it insanity.
no, that's love. That's worry, right? That's a mother's worry right there.
But Italy totally changed my life, primarily because I was surrounded by people that were striving to be excellent. And when I came back home, their attempt at excellence rubbed off on me, and I wanted to do everything that I could to recreate a similar culture in Canada that didn't exist in the scene of soccer. So my team was in training 2 to 3 times a day. In Italy, we were. As a result, I would go to a gym, a sports performance gym, to work out and train. I would run before school. And, you know, cause and effect is a real thing in life. And I always tell people there's so many things we can't control, but our choices we can. And that makes up a big proportion of the outcomes we experience. There's some things that are totally outside of our control, but our choices help dictate them or shift them or increase or decrease probabilities. And I gave myself what I thought was the best chance at bringing that dream to life. By the time I was a senior in high school, I had a full ride soccer a scholarship opportunity with Memphis University, hinging on them watching me play one final time in this big tournament called the Disney Cup. And I ended up having 3 major knee injuries, 2 operations, tore the labrum in my right hip, spent 2.5 years trying to get back on the field before deciding to stop playing sports. Felt useless. Um, I felt directionless, felt confused, but was very fortunate that I had a teacher that redirected my focus to focusing on helping others. And he taught this lesson in class called small, consistent actions, which was about taking a small act every single day to change something in your community you were passionate about changing. That lesson in class led to picking up pieces of garbage walking home from high school, which led to a group we started with a friend named Dylan Mendez, where we would pick up trash for 1 hour once a week. We needed more volunteers, so I asked my principal if I could speak in front of the entire high school. My chaplain filmed it. I have the video. It was like 8 years ago, and it's terrible. It's so bad.
No, it can't be.
It's bad. I was spitting on the mic. I was running back and forth. And I still have it up there on purpose because I want people to see the start of the journey. It was not who I am today, and I'm not nowhere near where I hope to be. And I have big dreams and goals still, but everyone, thinks that where you are now is where you've always been, and it's not the case. I was challenged as a professional speaker when I started, and anyway, I continued doing these promotional talks in local high schools to get more volunteers, and then a principal pulled me aside one time and said, "Dude, the students had so much fun listening to you. Can you come back and speak for 30 minutes?" I didn't know what the heck I was going to say for 30 minutes, but sometimes an opportunity forces us to grow.
Yeah.
So I said yes. I went home, wrote up a 30-minute thing, went back. That was the start of this interesting journey of being a professional speaker.
That's awesome, especially because it came from such a good place too. You were trying to help out and clean
Yeah.
up and recruit people for that, and they're like, "Well, this kid can talk. Let's get him
Yeah.
back here." I like that. I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
man.
So that was how long ago was that?
I was I was 17, which would have been in 2017, 2018, around that time.
So that's wow, and that's been ever since. You've continued on that road. How did you get through the COVID time? Because losing 34 speaking engagements, I imagine that's pretty crushing.
Yeah. Um, I think there was a couple of things that got me through the challenges. I'll circle back real quick to your point about the staff in the school
Oh,
for a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
second. Um, because losing the gigs was challenging, but the biggest challenge I faced was my self imposed beliefs about my age and how
Mm,
my age would have a big impact on my ability to help people. Um, and you referenced a story of some staff that I overheard cracking some jokes about me being too young and not gonna have things to share that are of any value to their students. And that was at the start of my journey. But what I want everyone to know today is that I still have those situations. In fact, I was looking to the right while we were talking, and I just pulled up a message that I got on Facebook. Um, what date was this? This was last week at 7:14 p.m. And I'm gonna just read this because
yeah, yeah.
it's human and it's tough to hear sometimes, but it just says, "Hello, I'm gonna change his name. My name is Bob. I recently bought your book using a credit from Audible, and I think as a whole, what you're doing is wonderful. You're providing teenagers with tools they can use to persevere. You should be very proud. I'm a 61-year-old man. But taking advice from a 22-year-old kid who says in his book that his life experiences are just as valuable as someone in their 40s and 50s, I think that is a big crock of
Yeah.
I'm enjoying your book, but I'm having a very difficult time taking so-called life advice from a 22-year-old kid who says that his Oh, I already read that part. I'm having a very difficult time taking life advice from a 22-year-old kid who is spouting out of his blank all these values that we need to follow when you are just a 22-year-old. I just wanted to warn you to not take yourself seriously because no one's going to take you seriously. Maybe if you were 30, people would take you seriously, but for a 22-year-old kid who's just spouting all these wise and ethical things that you have experienced in your life is complete BS. I am a human being,
Yeah.
um, just like everybody else is, and those sorts of messages hurt,
Oh, I
and
imagine.
I'm at a place now where they don't affect me as much as they did when I was 17 years old. And I've learned lots of lessons in my journey that most of our actions are a mirror to other people's actions. And to me, reading this makes me feel that this individual maybe didn't use their 20s or 30s the way they really wanted to. And seeing somebody else do it maybe is making them feel some emotions or experiences. And um, anyway, I think about this now a little bit differently to make this full circle. And I always tell myself as a reminder and other people, experience comes from experience. Meaning, if there's a 10-year-old kid who's been holding a camera and taking pictures since he was 5, and there's a 75-year-old man who's never touched a camera, the 10-year-old kid can teach the
Yeah.
75-year-old a thing or two about photography. And
Yes.
I have spent thousands of hours speaking on stage in front of young people, learning how to move people emotionally through stories. And I allow that to drive my confidence, not so much the opinions of others anymore, but it's been a
I
challenge and
I
still is a
imagine
challenge.
it still stings a little, but it reminds me, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Braveheart. Um, with
Yeah.
Mel Gibson, every man dies, but not every man really lives. So it
Mm,
like you're right, age doesn't really matter. There are plenty of people I know who have not grown at all in the last 20 years. They're still the same exact person. And there are other people who they push themselves, they challenge themselves, they reflect, they want to get better, and they have all these experiences that they go through and they learn from. Um, Usually the successful people are the ones who've had those trials and tribulations that they've have to overcome and learn from, as opposed to just kind of eking your way through life, which, we all have our moments where it's tough to get
yeah.
through. And imposter syndrome is huge. I know when I started this, and I was like, I just want one view. Like, give me one view. And I
Yeah.
used to, every episode that came out, it was like every hour, I'm checking it, I'm checking it. And I'd like pull up a different YouTube account and I'd have it like just play it. And make sure I hit the like. And I'm like, this is stupid. Like, do I enjoy it? Yes. Just do that and ignore the other stuff. If you know,
Mm.
if it comes, it comes, but learn from the shows, try to improve a little bit each time, make the connections you're connecting with, the people you're meeting. And you're right, the imposter syndrome, it still comes. Even hearing you, and I'm like, in my mind, it wasn't like, here's some young kid. I'm like, wow, this guy's legit. He knows his stuff. But I've also, you're approachable. You're a normal guy, like going back and forth, messaging you. I was like, oh, all right. I like this kid. I like this guy. Like, we get along well here. Might have to go play, not soccer, because that I would, you destroy me in that. Maybe some pickup hoops or something, or just go hit the gym a little bit. But it's it's different. It's definitely different, but it's not the age that makes a difference. It's the experiences, like you said. So that's yeah, thank you for sharing that though. And I appreciate you cleaning it up. And I forgot to tell you before we started, you can keep the swearing to a minimum. I can mute it, and I've had to clean it up in the past for certain guests, but I appreciate you having the wherewithal to know to know. That was good. Um, talk to me about the student that actually, no, before that, small consistent actions.
Yeah.
Was that Mr. Lockhart or no?
You got it,
Oh,
Mr. Loudfoot.
Loudfoot. I couldn't read my own writing. I wrote it down. Gilderoy
That's okay.
Lockhart. I was giving a Harry Potter reference. Small
So
consistent actions. Is that something you still like? Is that kind of in the forefront of what you're doing to keep you on track, or how do you use that advice?
I set goals and then ask myself, what do I have to do to make the goals inevitable? And those actions become the small, consistent actions I measure or hold myself accountable to taking. One of my goals right now is to fill stadiums of people, and I envision it being multi-generational audiences, meaning a family comes out all together. Imagine a grandma, a mother, and her daughter all coming out together to watch a show that's half comedy, half motivation, that makes people laugh, but also remember their shared humanity and leave remembering some important ideas or reflecting on some of their own experiences. If that goal is going to become a reality, many things have to happen. One is that we have to build a much larger audience, or else we're not going to be able to fill up a stadium of people. Two,
Yeah,
Sam Demma, as a performer, is going to have to become way more skilled than he is today to create that type of demand and excitement from people. So I signed up for a 6 week stand up comedy class.
nice.
I invested in and I've been reading as many books as I can find on performing, whether it's stand up, or actual just storytelling. I'm studying Matthew Dix right now, who's a phenomenal storyteller and has a great book called Storyworthy. And so the small, consistent actions for me are about determining what the goal is, figuring out the actions that make it inevitable. And if I don't know what they are, find someone else who's already doing it and ask them the path they took. The other half of the small, consistent actions is figuring out what not to do. There's a analogy or a rule with airplanes, and I'm not sure exactly how accurate it is, but the analogy is strong, and it's the 1 degree rule. And it states that if an airplane is 1 degree off course, approximately every 60 minutes it's 1 degree off course, it will miss its destination by an entire mile. 1 degree sounds like such
Yeah,
an insignificant um, change or misdirection from the destination, but over time, that little error makes a big impact. And so I also ask myself, what are the small, consistent actions I need to stop taking? Or what trade offs do I have to make to also bring myself closer? And so that's how I think about the small, consistent actions today in a personal and professional context. But then you can also think about it in a service context or how your actions are impacting others. Um, so yeah, I also have it tattooed on my left forearm as a constant reminder. It says SCA.
whoa, pull that back up again.
Yeah, check it out.
Oh, that's awesome. That's, yeah,
Yeah.
you're not forgetting now.
Nah,
Every
don't
time you
tattoo
brush your
yourself,
teeth,
folks.
that thing's popping up right there. That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. You one of the things you just said there, what to stop. I think everybody looks at art, what do I have to do? But
Yeah.
there are all those actions and all those things that you're doing also that are hinder. Like how many times do people scroll on social media or just hit snooze 3 times? That's 27 minutes right there that you could have gotten up and, accomplished something else. So were there any specific things you recognize that, all right, I got to stop doing this if I want to succeed here?
I took a full year off social media because I had a very bad relationship with it when I was 20 and 21 years old. I went pretty much cold turkey for about 9 months. I came back prematurely to release a graduation video. Rebuilding my relationship with social media and not spending as much time on my phone was one of the things. That was prompted by a study that I saw, and I can't remember the research, but someone could search it up and find it for themselves. But it was the average amount of time that a human being spends staring at their phone. And it was some like multiple years. And it freaked me out. I was like, holy smokes, if I could take that time and put it into developing a skill or building a relationship or seeing my grandparents, how much better will my life be instead of choosing to scroll online? Um, so that was one thing I had to give up. I also had to give up, and this wasn't a vice of mine um, by any means. I partied a little bit when I was in high school or the end of my high school career and in college, university, and I gave up alcohol completely. I never had a problem with it, but it always made me feel poorly when I drank,
Yeah.
even if it was just a little bit. Um, I think that was inspired by 50 Cent and Jack Harlow, which are two big like rap
Yeah.
artists who, 50 Cent sells alcohol but doesn't drink any. What a fascinating, what a fascinating company, you know? Um,
Yeah.
I saw a post from Jack Harlow, who's one of the biggest rappers right now, and he talked about giving up alcohol and how it had a transformational impact on his life, and I found that so inspiring. I had to give up comparing myself to other people that were 10 steps ahead of me in their journey. When
Yeah.
I,
That's a big one.
you know,
That's a
first
big
started,
one.
I was comparing my first step to their 100th step, and that always made me feel like I was so far behind. Um, and then I also had to give up the when, like deciding when my goals were going to come to life. I think having a deadline is helpful because it forces us to start, take action, create plans, reverse engineer them. But we truly have very little influence on when the stadium gets filled up or if the book becomes a New York Times bestseller or any
Mm.
of these big goals that people sometimes set. And falling in love with the journey instead of falling in love with these timelines and deadlines has been another thing that I've shifted in my career as well.
I like that one. One thing, all of that made me think about your day, and it sounds like, or maybe you can just throw a random, not random, but just like a general percentage on this. Your day, how much time do you spend learning versus like working on a speech or something like that? You strike me as a learner or constant.
I have a small team. There's three of us. We read a book together every 2 weeks. So
Wow.
we have a weekly meeting every Thursday, and every second Thursday, we debrief the last book we chose to read as a team, and then we choose another one. And it's really cool because we alternate who picks the books. And Matt, who's 19, and Richard, who's 28, who has very different interests and lives in a different place in the world, chooses such different books that maybe I would never pick up. So that's been a big source of learning. I do a lot of my learning on the bike. I currently am training towards an Ironman next August,
Nice.
and
Full
there's
Ironman, half
long
Ironman.
full Ironman. Yeah,
Wow. What's the longest you've done?
I
Like,
have biked 200 kilometers. I have run a full marathon, and I've swam across my lake. So I figure if I could do them individually, maybe I can string them together and see what happens.
that's no
But
joke though. That's no
I
joke. That's
know.
a good goal though.
And what I'll tell you is this: if I fail, and by fail I mean I didn't try, but if I don't complete the race the day it happens, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I do, I will be a better off human being because I chose that goal and worked towards it. And
Yeah.
and Jim Rohn, again, I'm referencing, who is a big inspiration for me, always said the value of a goal is not reaching it. It's about who it forces you to become in the process of pursuing it.
Yes.
And that's always stuck with me. I'm like, if I reach for this big thing, whether I achieve it or not, it's going to change my character and change my commitments and change the people I talk to and change the things I learn. And it's already started. I mean, I have this new little Garmin watch that I love that tells me if I'm getting enough rest at night now, and like
Oh, that's
it's
good. There was one, I
forcing me to learn
forget
some
the
new stuff.
guy who said it, but the clip like is so vivid in my mind where he's talking about success and all that. And he's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, you try it, fail, 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 but you're just a little bit better. Fail, 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 but you're getting a little bit better. And it's just, you almost want to see how many times you can fail. Like, that's
Yeah,
not a bad thing. And it's got such a negative connotation with it, but it means you're trying, but, and you didn't give up. And I mean, the difference between a successful person and one who isn't is one just stopped and the other
yeah.
one kept going. So I had a woman on, the show's not out yet, who's she's out of Qatar and she's training for her first triathlon now. And
Wow,
another woman who was on the show, Katie Van Doren, is she's got a half Ironman in November, and she posts constantly her workouts and her reels. And I'm just like, that's all right, she's going to crush this because she's dialed in and it's like every day it's lined up and she's getting a little better. So that's a great goal. That's on my bucket list that I've got terrible Achilles tendonitis that I paint houses during the summer, and
oh
standing on
wow.
a ladder all day is apparently the worst thing in the world for it. And the budget shoes I kept buying from the Kohl's rack are not are not good for my feet. So my physical therapist had a good heart to heart with me, and she's like, "You got to stop." Like she's like, "You can buy all your clothes from this thrift shop, but you got to buy good shoes." Like I'm like,
That's awesome.
all right, I'll do that. I'll do that. But I love that. Oh, that's next August.
Yeah, I got a full year.
All right. Are you doing that with anybody, or is that just you're on your own and this is like a Sam goal?
I have a buddy, Daniel, who I rode the 200-kilometer bike ride with, and at the end, he said, "Man, it's always been a goal of mine to do an Ironman, but at some point in the future." And I said, "Dude, the longer you wait, the older you're gonna get, the harder it's gonna get. Let's just do it now." And he was like, "Okay." And the first thing I did, Derek, I went online to someone I knew who had done an Ironman, and I messaged him and said, "Do you coach people on training for Ironmans?" And he was like, "Sometimes. Like, are you serious about it? It's a big commitment." I was like, "Yep." And he sent me a gear list, and I'm doing my first Olympic triathlon September 7th. And I've been training for it the past like month. Um, and yeah, I think, man, people who have done the things we want to do are so accessible if we reach out to them and ask them like the genuine questions.
100%. If they know what goes into it, and if they see someone who's actually passionate about it, people who are in a good place want to help everybody else get there. Like nobody's
Yep.
trying to prevent people from succeeding.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love, that was another thing. I've been taking notes while you're talking. And that was another thing, is just asking for help from people
Yeah.
who've done it. Which is a great, great piece of advice. A lot of us try to do it on our own until you realize, like, all right, like it's not a bad thing to ask for help, and you build that connection too. So I'm sure when you do it, this guy's going to be in your corner rooting you on anyway, and going to be psyched to see how you do. Well, that's
I'm
awesome.
pumped. I'm excited. There was a small financial contribution to hire him to coach me, which I think is also important because it keeps me accountable and committed now that I have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Um, I also didn't recognize that there's a pretty investment to sign up for an Ironman.
in the bike you got to get and everything, like it's not cheap. It's not
Yeah,
cheap. But it'll
crazy.
be worth it in the end. It'll definitely, like that's I don't think there are many people who can say they completed an Ironman. So not that you're comparing yourself to
I
other
can't
people,
say
but
it yet.
well, they can't say, yeah, I have the utmost faith in you, Sam. I think you can come back on next summer after you do. We'll chat about how it went. Yeah,
Let's go.
I like it. I like it. Um, I love how this conversation is just drifting places I didn't see it going. I had no idea you had those aspirations. I want to, and I don't remember if I said this in another show or not, but I, now my Achilles is starting to heal up and I can't do anything. I got to make sure it's 100% because my, my son's 16 and he's my height now. I'm 6'3", and he is so close to dunking. And we were going like, I was like, all right, I got to get it back. Cause I used to be able to jump. I tore both knees, tore my meniscus. Like I had my setbacks. So I'd start the plyos in the training. Cause I've done
Yeah.
it before. I know what I have to do. And then the Achilles would flare up and so I never gave it enough rest and healed it up. But I want to run across Massachusetts. I
Wow.
want to start West Coast, end at the Boston Seaport, raise money for Make a Wish or Boston Children's Hospital or both. And April vacation is when I want to do it. Um, and now that I'm saying it out loud, I probably have to do it now.
Let's go,
I
man.
know. I know, but I gotta, I don't know. I gotta push myself. I gotta push myself. And once you can't do something for so long and it gets taken away and you get it back, you're like, all right, I gotta make the most of this. You never know when it's going to go away again. Hopefully it won't, but you know, it's, yeah. So that's
I'm
what I'm,
excited for you, man. That's awesome.
yeah. I don't have no idea what that entails if I have to run with a tent on my back or something like that. I don't know. I'll figure it out though. I'll figure it out. I don't know. Maybe I can mark the diners on the way and just stop at each one
Yeah.
and get a lunch.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Well, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. Can you tell me about you had a story about one of the kids that you had spoken to who's trying to gain his following so that he wouldn't be getting bullied as much. Can you jump into
Yeah.
that one a little bit for me and tell me how that went?
Yeah. During the pandemic, I had a conversation with a young man on Instagram Live, which is like a Zoom call on Instagram. So you can see each other on video and there's an audience live watching. We had about 30, 40 students. And
Yeah.
I asked him what his biggest dream in life was. And he told me it was to get, half a 100,000 followers, 50,000 followers online. And I asked him why. And he told me if he had them, people would stop bullying him at school. And I just froze because he started to get emotional and cry, and I didn't really know what to say in the moment. And we started encouraging him to turn his camera back on and let him know that the followers of others weren't going to change who he was or shouldn't change how he sees himself and that he was enough now. And we ended up connecting with his guidance counselors at school and we sent him some merch in the mail. And I say we because there was another gentleman live on the call with me. We were hosting conversations together. And I just remember ending that call thinking how sad it was that this young man was allowing other people's words about him to change how he felt about
Yeah.
himself. And, and I was telling you about the person who messaged me on Facebook whose words
Yeah.
changed how I felt about myself.
Yeah.
And
No,
I think in life we just allow people's words to dictate how we feel so often, and it's a tragedy because it stops us from being ourselves.
I think a lot of times too, it hits on our own insecurities and, we got that imposter syndrome and all that stuff that we were talking about. And when somebody brings it up, it kind of brings it hits, it hits hard. So what became of that? Like, how did that
Uh
end?
I was writing poems at the time, and I ended up writing one about letting go of negative thoughts inspired by that conversation. And that turned into a poem called Empty Your Backpack. And if someone searches on YouTube Empty Your Backpack poem, they can find the poem I created. It has music scored to it and a animated video that was created by a professional animator. Um, and took that poem and turned it into a book titled Empty Your Backpack. If anyone wants to grab a copy, they can find it at samdemma.com or on Amazon.
I'll put the
Um,
links to everything in the description below, when
Thank
this
you.
comes out and everything. Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah, so the book is all about helping people let go of those negative thoughts and opinions and move toward a goal or a dream they have. And then the book and the poem turned into a tour. I got this giant 4-foot red backpack that I wear that acts as a metaphor for our
I
thoughts
saw
and
the
how they
picture on
weigh
your
us.
website. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, for the past couple of years, I've been traveling with that backpack to schools and companies and associations doing keynote speeches, um, all inspired by that conversation with this young man.
That's awesome. We got to get you out to Massachusetts here. I gotta talk to some people. I don't know what your tour date's looking like, but or your tour. I'm guessing it's pretty booked up, but we gotta get you out in the Northeast here. So I'd
I
love to
would
see
love
you in
to,
their
man.
schools.
That would
Yeah.
be awesome.
Uh, yeah. Nothing wrong with the people we've had come in. They're all wonderful people, but yeah, no, this would be nice. Be someone's taco. Is that what age is that geared towards? Is that just, I mean, I'm sure anybody can get something from it, but is it elementary age level that it's targeting?
The actual book itself, definitely like kindergarten, 3 to 5 year olds. But the story overall, I've shared it with seniors, adults, students,
Oh, nice.
teenagers, young parents. I think what's interesting is a well-told story connects with all age groups because
That's
it
true.
touches on human emotion. Like we sit down with our little cousins sometimes to watch Disney films and I start crying. I'm like,
There's nothing
I
wrong
thought
with
this
that. There's nothing
I
wrong
thought
with
this
that.
was for the kids, and yeah. So yeah, I speak to all age groups, but I really market myself to the youth because I feel like that's where I make the greatest contribution right now.
I like that. We're gonna have to pick up a copy of that book because I do want to read that. I haven't read it yet, but from meeting you and
Um,
everything, I gotta read that to my kids. Maybe I can get that passed around the school a little bit to give people a chance to check it out. But that sounds like a good one for sure.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Um, well, I know you're busy, and I think we went a little longer than the time that we had, but I apologize for that. But I thank you so much for taking the time and hopping on here. It was awesome to meet you, Sam. I'm really glad we were able to make this connection.
Derek, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so glad that we crossed paths. Keep doing the amazing work you're doing, and we'll connect again shortly, my friend.
Yeah, you too. And how can people? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you for those that want to reach out?
Well, we post 2 videos a day across all our social media platforms. It's just my name, Sam, last name, Demma. So following along there, and finding those videos would be the best way, or sending a message on those platforms. I answer all my messages, and I love getting back to people. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's fun, and it gives me energy. The other way is if someone wants to book a speech for their company, school, or association or team, samdemma.com would be the best place to go and reach out.
Okay, awesome, awesome. I'll make sure all that information's written down below too, so people can easily find that. So, Sam, thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. I really appreciate you hopping on here, and thank you everybody for listening too.
Thanks, Derek.